Well, friends, welcome back. We'll continue our discussion on supply concept. Uh, what is important for us is to first identify whether a particular transaction or particular activity is supply or not. Next step, as we are discussing, was the last part of the previous class. Once you know a particular activity or transaction is a supply, the next step is that we have to see whether it is a taxable supply or not. And also, we have to see whether supply has been made by a taxable person or not. Okay, we'll continue from that point. Let me share the screen. Yeah, in the previous class, we had left from this point. Is it not? So first we have to see whether a particular activity is supply or not, as I told. Then two more conditions. Supply must be made by a taxable person, and supply must be a taxable person. Okay, the recipient can be either a taxable person or a non-taxable person. That doesn't matter, right? But if supplier is taxable person, then tax will be levied. Or that transaction will attract GST. And who is a taxable person? Briefly, we'll be learning here. A person who is registered under section 22 or under section 24 will be learning all these things. What are the various alternatives of registration? When we will be learning this registration chapter, these things will be clear to us. So, if a person is registered under GST law, he is a taxable person. Or if the person is liable to be registered, a person is liable to be registered, but incidentally he has not registered. Still, that person will be regarded as a taxable person, right? So, registered person, unregistered persons who are liable to be registered, and persons who are voluntarily registered themselves. Even if they are not liable, they might have gone for registration. If they are opted for registration voluntarily, they are also taxable person. If the supplier is a taxable person, irrespective of the fact whether the recipient is a taxable person or not, then on that transaction or that activity, GST will be levied. And what is a taxable supply? It should not be exempted supply. The goods and services must be taxable. That is called as taxable supply. And earlier also we are learning that it is important for us to see whether the transaction is or the supply is in the course of or furtherance of business. That is important for all goods. But for importation of services, there are certain exceptions we have seen. Okay. Now here is let us decide this particular case. What is your answer? Let me see. A proprietor of a farm has received the architect service for his house from an architect located in New York at an agreed consideration of $5,000. Your question is whether this particular transaction will amount to supply or not. And this question will go to Sairaj. Sairaj, can you answer me? A proprietor has received architect services from an architect located outside India, and the consideration amount is 5,000.
Yes, sir.
You feel it is
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
supplying?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Uh, when you talk about importation of services, there are certain exceptions to that. Who has remembered that exceptions regarding importation of services? Not for goods, for services, there is specific uh, exemption. Who has remembered that? Your answer is okay, but have you remembered the exception? On what basis you are answering? I want to know that. Okay, let me help you. Okay. So importation of service is a supply, even if it is not in the course of or furtherance of the business. Okay, here even if it is not in the course of business or furtherance of the business, but still, and it's for a consideration, you see, it is for a consideration. So even if it is not in the course of business or furtherance of business, still it will be regarded as supply. Okay, your answer is right, but that analysis is important for us.
Yes, sir.
Right? And in the previous class, when we were learning, we have gone through the schedule 1. And in the schedule 1 of CGST Act, we have seen there are instances where certain activities can be still regarded as supply, even if they are without consideration, even if they are made for without consideration. Isn't it? Some examples we are seeing. Now we'll see some of the cases on those examples. First, instances where there is a permanent transfer or disposal of business assets. Right? When there is a permanent transfer or disposal of business asset, even if such transactions are made without consideration, still they will amount to supply. Okay. But there is a condition attached there. What is that condition? They will be regarded as supply only if input credit has been availed. We know what is the concept of input credit, right? We had done a small project on that also, how input credit can be adjusted. Only when ITC has been availed, then only permanent transfer or disposal of business asset without consideration shall be regarded as supply. Okay. So if I summarize this thing, there are 3 conditions I have to check. First condition is that there must be disposal or transfer of business asset. Business assets must have been disposed of or transferred. Second thing is that the transfer or disposal must be permanent. Okay, because you see in that schedule 1 specifically it says permanent transfer or disposal. Okay, if it is rebuttable, if this, again these assets are coming back, then that's not a permanent transfer. But permanently the business assets are transferred. Third thing is that input tax credit must have been availed. Only when these 3 conditions are met, then only the transaction will amount to supply. Okay, and 2 specific things you have to remember here. There are certain goods, certain services where input tax credit has been blocked or not available. Okay, in some exceptional cases only it is available. It's not available for all. For example, suppose a normal business buys a vehicle, buys a car, then in normal circumstances he cannot take input tax credit. Input tax credit on car is blocked. Okay, there are some specific businesses who can take input tax credit, but not all. Right? In that case, even if there is a transfer of business asset and there is a permanent transfer, still, and that is without consideration, still it will not be deemed to be a supply. Okay, transactions without consideration, permanent transfer without consideration will be deemed to be supply only when ITC has been availed. If input tax credit has been availed, then only it will be regarded as a deemed supply. Okay, or there might be situation where the asset or the product is eligible for ITC, but the organization has not taken ITC credit. He has not availed voluntarily. He has not taken credit. Then also it will not be treated as a deemed supply, even if there is a permanent transfer or disposal of businesses. Okay, I'll give you some example. Let us say somebody gives his old laptop, which is used in his business. So it's a business asset. Okay, he gives this business laptop to his friend free of cost. Okay, free of cost, he donated his business asset to his friend. Now, what do you think? Is it a supply? I mean, is it a deemed supply? Once again, I am showing you the schedule 1 conditions. Now, explain me whether the first case, A person gives a old laptop being used for his business to his friend free of cost. We have to see
So it is
it is a
deemed supply.
deemed supply. If you are assuming he has taken ITC, okay, then definitely it's a deemed supply, right? It's a permanent transfer, it's a deemed supply, right? Answer is correct. I will assume answer is correct. It will qualified supply provided ITC credit has been. The second case I'm saying a dealer of air conditioners, that means a AC dealer, air conditioner dealer, permanently transfers his motor vehicle. He has purchased a business car. His motor vehicle is transferred free of cost without consideration it has been transferred. Now your question is, uh, will it amount to deemed supply? Is it a supply or not? Under the provisions of Schedule 1, should we regard it as a supply? Consideration is nil. What is your answer?
Sir, I think it will be because assuming the same input tax credit has been availed.
You are assuming that input tax credit can be availed, right? If you are assuming like this, it's okay. But you see, input tax credit will not be available on motor vehicle for a AC dealer. In some specific business, that is tour operators kind of business, they can only avail motor credit on motor car. Otherwise, the ITC on motor vehicle is blocked. For a normal businessman, if he buys a motor car and uses it for business, he cannot take input tax credit on this. Okay, understood. So, considering this, ITC and the motor vehicle since blocked, the transaction will not constitute as supply. Is it clear? It's clear or not?
Yes, sir.
Okay. In case of motor vehicle, that is the issue. Now you tell me one thing. Suppose similarly, holding company assets are transferred to subsidiary. So naturally, without consideration, it's a permanent transfer. Okay, holding company assets are transferred to subsidiary without consideration. Will it amount to supply? What's your opinion? Is it a supply or not? Supply or not? Simple thing, if the input credit is available, then it's a supply.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now we'll cover one more concept which is also included in the Schedule 1. Schedule 1, yesterday we are seeing it. That it also includes supply between related person or distinct person. So now there is a need to understand who are the related person. At that time I also told you. I will be explaining you subsequently. And what is the meaning of distinct person? Distinct person I had explained you at that point of time. A person, for some reason, one person might be having multiple registrations. So each of these registered, each of these you can say registered business premises can be regarded as distinct persons. We'll be learning that concept. Who are the related person and who are the distinct person. So if supply is made between related person or distinct person, even without any consideration, then that will be treated as deemed supply as per Schedule 1. First, we'll see who are the related person. Related person means person who is under influence of another person. If one person can influence the another person, we can call both the person the related person. Technically, if you have to see, this particular diagram explains who are the related person. Persons, including legal persons, are deemed to be related. If, please, some of you read these points. If these are the, you can see the examples of related person. What is first one? This is the first one. Please read the first point.
Such persons, including legal persons, are deemed as related persons if such persons are officers or directors of one another's business.
And that means one by one we'll discuss. If they're the officers or directors of one another's business, right? Let us say there is a business A, there is business B. Okay, two businesses are there. Or let us say one person is a officer in another's business. Look, just a minute, let us use whiteboard here. Yeah, such persons are officers or directors in one another's business. Okay, suppose there is a business A, there is a business B. Okay, or let us say there is a person X. What can be the possible relations? Who can explain? If X is the officer, or let us say X is the owner of this particular business and he is also working in A, he is the officer. Then I will take it. Let us say there is a business X, A is the person. A is an officer or director in a business, then he is definitely a related person. Or let us say A is a business, B is another business, A is the officer in B, B is also an officer in A. Understood this concept? A is an officer in B, B is also an officer in A. Then you can say their officers or directors in one another's business. So both of them will be regarded as what? Related person. Okay. Understood first point? Yes or no? Is it visible to you?
Yes, I think so.
Sir,
Is it okay? Let me show it 1 second. Let us say two persons, A, B. A is the officer director of B, B is also an officer or director A. Then they are definitely related persons. They're, okay. That is the first part. If two persons are officers or directors in each other's business, then they will be regarded as related persons. Now let us see the next category of related person. What is the second category? Legally recognized partners. We know the concept of partnership. If they are legally recognized partners, then two of them are partners in a business, then they are related persons. Third case, they are employer and employee. Employer and employee are also related persons. Right? In certain situations, we will be learning the supply by employee to employer are not coming under the purview of GST. We will be learning that thing. But here you have to understand that relationship between employer and employee. If employer and employee will be considered as related persons to each other. Now, next point, this point you please read it. Please read this point, a third person.
A third person controls, owns, holds directly or indirectly greater than equal to 25% voting of stocks or share or both of them.
Let us say here is a company A. Here is another company B. Then the third person, and this third person owns or holds at least 25%. That means 25% or more of the voting stock of both of them. C holds more than 25% of A. C holds more than 25% of B. Even if there is no direct relationship between A and B, still they will be considered as related. Okay, still they will be considered as related. Is it clear to you? Company A is there, company B is there. There is no direct relationship between them. But there is a third person C. C holds more than equal to 25% of voting power. More than or equal to 25% of the voting power. He holds in A, he holds in B. Then even if there is no direct relationship between A and B, but still A and B will be considered as related person because there is a common shareholder, a common person who is controlling both of them. Did you understand this? Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Now, one of them controls another. Suppose company A controls company B. It may be direct control or through somebody control might be there. Then also they are related person. Okay, a third person controls. First case is that shareholding. Even without shareholding also third person can control. If a third person controls both of them, they are also related person. Okay. And such persons together directly control a third person. That means here what happens? One more example. These companies, A and B, they jointly control another company D. Okay, they directly control. So they together control a third person, then also they are related. Okay. So these two companies, A and B, jointly controlling a third company D, then also they are related. And these two companies, A and B, are controlled by a third person, or the third person is holding more than equal to or more than 25% of the voting right, they are also related. Okay. Understood this example? Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
And the persons are members of the same family. If they are the family members, they are also related. One of them is a sole agent, sole distributor, or sole concessionaire of the other. So all these things, sole agency, sole distributorship, sole concessionaire contracts, all of them will be considered as related persons. Okay. Now, let us see this example. Let us say somebody holds 30% shares of ABC Limited and 35% shares of XYZ Limited. In that case, you see, one person is holding more than 25% of ABC Limited and more than 25% of XYZ Limited. Right? Who is holding? Only one person is holding. In that case, ABC Limited and XYZ Limited will be considered as related persons. Okay? Because there is a common shareholder who holds more than equal to 25%. Right? Then a company is deciding to roll as, or a person is, or company is deciding to roll in corporate policy, operation management, and quality control of R Limited. That means one company is controlling another company. It can be said that Q Limited controls R Limited. So directly it is controlling. The Q Limited and R Limited are related. If one company is controlling another company, then they are also related. Understood these two examples? If you have understood related person, I think you have understood the term related person. Then we'll move to understand one more concept, what is called as distinct person. Okay, and under GST law, you may not be knowing at this stage, you will be knowing subsequently when you will be learning registration chapter. The supplier is required to obtain state-wise registration. For every state, separate registrations may be required. Okay, he has to obtain registration for every state or union territory where he makes taxable supply. Right, provided his aggregate turnover exceeds the threshold limit. State-wise limits are different. Most of the states is 40 lakh. If it exceeds, then he has to obtain state-wise registration number. Okay. But however, if he is making some non-taxable supply from a particular state, he need not obtain registration number from that particular state. Okay, this is the some broad concept we have understood. But however, where he has multiple places of business in a state or union territory, first of all, we understood that if he is supplying taxable supplies from different states, he has to go for multiple registers. But he has multiple places of business in one state. One state within the state or within the union territory, there are multiple places of business. Then he has got an option. He may either get a single registration or he may get separate registrations for each such place of business. So he has got an option, he has got a choice, he may go for that. Okay, so two concepts I told you. First of all, if he is making taxable supplies from different states, then he has to go for separate registration for each state. If he is making taxable supply, if he is making non-taxable supply, then that's not necessary. That is one concept. And if he is having different places of business, multiple places of business within state, then he may either go for multiple registration for different places, or he may go for common registration within the or a single registration within the same state. That is his choice. Okay. Having understood this, with this background, we'll try to understand what is the meaning of distinct person. The establishment of a person with separate registrations. So there is a possibility of separate registration because of multi-state operation or because of voluntary choice. So the establishment of a business with separate registration, whether within the same state or in different states, are considered as distinct persons. Okay, if there are multiple registrations, for somebody is having 5 registrations, all of them will be regarded as distinct person. They will be having separate GSTIN, but they will be linked to a common PAN. There is a common permanent account number, but separate GSTINs are there. So each this establishment, each of these establishments shall be regarded as a distinct person. Okay, I think you have understood what is the meaning of distinct person. Okay, a person who is obtained or required to obtain more than one registration, whether in one state or more than one state, shall in respect of each such registration be treated as a distinct person. So that is the concept of distinct person. Okay, for example, suppose a chartered accountant is having office at Delhi. He may also have registration in the state of West Bengal. He may open a new office, open a branch office there. So, with respect to this Delhi office as well as the West Bengal office, both of them will be treated as distinct person. Even then, even if there is a common permanent account number. Okay, so this is the meaning of distinct person. Did you understand what is the meaning of distinct person? Did you understand? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The term distinct person is important for us. Right. Now, some more key issues we will be discussing now. Just a minute. This is regarding establishment of distinct person. Yeah, let us see a particular situation. We'll analyze this particular issue. Then we'll be discussing some more cases. So a particular company, we call it as the Rest of Enterprise, is a registered supplier. He owns a air-conditioned restaurant at a particular place of Maharashtra. That means what is the business? It's the restaurant business in Maharashtra. Okay. And the same organization is also having a liquor shop at Uttarakhand. That means two states are involved. Two different kind of businesses. One is restaurant in Maharashtra. Second is liquor shop in Uttarakhand. Okay. And you know, this supply of alcoholic liquor for human consumption is a non-taxable supply under GST as of now. So, since he is making non-taxable supply in the state of Uttarakhand, he did not obtain GST registration. He did not obtain a separate registration in the state of Uttarakhand. Okay, but restaurant business is a taxable supply. He may obtain a registration in the state of Maharashtra. Okay, understood the situation? So for Maharashtra, there is a registration. For Uttarakhand, he may go voluntarily, but it's not necessary because he is making non-taxable supply. Right? Understood this case. Now, in this situation, let us assume some air conditioners, some AC machines are supplied from Maharashtra to Uttarakhand. Okay, so air conditioned restaurant in Maharashtra and liquor shop in Uttarakhand shall be treated as establishment of distinct person. Two establishment, distinct person. Supply made by Maharashtra office to Uttarakhand office in the course of furtherance of the business without consideration. Since they are the, you can say the owner of both the businesses are same, there is no consideration. Okay, so no consideration, and this will be regarded as supply between distinct persons. Okay, without consideration. Understood this? Supply is made between a registered restaurant and, let us say, unregistered establishment in some other state. This will be considered as a supply between two distinct persons. Now we'll extend that example. Let us say one more situation like this. Here there are transactions between two different locations. There are two separate GST registrations, but legal entity is same. Okay. This is a particular, I can say, fabric business. A particular fabric business transfers 100 pieces of shirt from his factory located at Lucknow to his retail godown at Delhi. So transport from Lucknow to Delhi so that it can be sold from there. The factory and the retail showroom both are registered in state where they are located. So both are registered. Okay. So you can say it is transferred from one place to another place, but owner of both the establishments are the same. Is it not? And different registration numbers are there. So that is a transfer between between the distinct persons. Even if it is a stock transfer without any consideration, still it will be regarded as supply. Okay, is it clear? Still it will be regarded as supply. Now, okay, although no consideration, still it will be regarded as a supply. Now, let us say similar kind of example, another kind of situation. Let us say there is a, you see, if both the things happen, let us say both the establishments are under one state, then what is the possibility? There is the option then one may go for single registration or multiple registration. If multiple registrations are there, then only it will be regarded as supply between distinct persons. So even if without constitution, that will be regarded as supply. Okay, but if it is a single registration, if by choice somebody has gone for single registration, then the supply is not between two distinct persons. In that case, it will not be regarded as supply. Is it clear to you? Or you need explanation on this? Is it clear or you need explanation? Did you understand this concept?
Yes,
Or-
sir.
Okay, just give me a minute. I will try to explain you. Okay. Just a minute. Yeah, I think you are seeing a virtual whiteboard now. Just give me a moment. Okay. So as I told you just now, let us say if there are different verticals of business. Okay, let us say two kinds of businesses are there, and they are located in one state. Or let us say one business has got multiple branches at different places, different business establishments are there. Then there is a choice. Then one may go for single registration or one may go for multiple registration. Is it not? Suppose one business center is that, let us say, at one place, or let us say place A. It is not convenient. Or I'll do one thing. Let us say, here is one place of business. Another place of business, I will say, let us say, now let's say two places of businesses are there. Then you may go for single registration or multiple registration. Yes or no? Yes or no? Registration chapter has not been taught to you, but still at this stage, you just keep this thing in mind that there is a choice that you may go for single registration or you may go for multiple registration. If there is a single registration, then they are not distinct persons. Let us say here is the head office, here is the branch. Okay, right? One place there is a head office, another place, let us say there is a branch. Then any stock transfer between them will not be regarded as supply, since there is only one registration and they are not treated as distinct persons. Okay, consequently, that will not be taxable. But in case they go for multiple registration, then what will happen? They will be regarded, this transaction will be regarded as supply between two distinct persons, and accordingly will attract GST. Is it clear to you? Is it clear or not?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So when you will learning this registration process, you will find registration process, so we'll be learning it. At that time, you will see when you apply for registration, there is a procedure. Procedure will insist that you have to mention what is your place of business and what is your additional place of business. If you write all these additional places of business, they'll be regarded as additional place of business, and with the same registration, you can continue doing your business. And if that is so, then supply of any goods from the your main place of business or from a principal place of business to the additional place of business without consideration will not be regarded as supply. Okay, because they are not between two distinct persons. There will be only one person. That means within one registration, you can cover all these additional places. Okay, I'll be show you at that point of time. I think it will be better once we cover that registration chapter. Once again, we may discuss this concept of a distinct person at that point of time. Right? Now coming to this concept, supply of services between employer and employee. Employer-employee, as you know, they are related persons. They are coming under the definition of related person. But however, there is one exemption. That is gift of ₹250,000 in a financial year made by the employer to an employee shall not be constituted as supply. If it is more than ₹50,000, then that will be construed as supply. Consequently, that will attract GST. Okay. Fine. Now let us see certain. Then now the question will come whether a particular service provided or particular goods supplied, whether they will constitute gift or not. First of all, right? So first of all, any supply made by the, let us say, employees to the employer, definitely that is not a supply in the context of business, in the context of GST. We'll discuss few more examples now. Just give me a minute. I'm searching the appropriate example. Yeah, this is what I was looking for. Let us say one employer is giving something like perquisites. Free houses are given to employees. What do you feel? Will it be treated as a supply? Employer is providing free houses to employees. Here you have to remember this kind of supply, like perquisites, etc., in the course or in relation to the employment, is outside the scope of GST. It is neither supply of goods nor supply of services. Okay, sometimes some employer extend these facilities, members, club membership facilities, health club facilities, healthcare facilities. Okay, they provide all these facilities free of charge to the employees. They will also not be subjected to GST because they are made in the context of employment. As per terms of employment, all these services are provided. So free housing to the employees as per the terms of employment contract, they will also not be regarded as supply. And the supply between principal and agent, those concepts broadly were discussed earlier. But here the question may come how to distinguish whether a person is agent or not. Some specific situations are discussed. We'll be very briefly covering this thing. And then one more concept, that is concept of creditor agent. This concept again I will be discussing you after some time. Before that, some clarifications I will tell you. Yeah, this some more cases we'll be discussing. Now, in the context of supply, import of services from a related person or from his establishment located outside India without consideration in the course or furtherance of business shall be treated as supply. We know this concept. Now, this is the case we are discussing. A particular organization received legal consultancy services from its head office located as outside India, located in Malaysia. Right? Which service? Legal consultancy service. So this is definitely comes under import of services. Is it not? Services are received from outside India. And the head office didn't charge anything. That means this particular service is free of cost. Right? The issue is that whether this supply, this consultancy service will be regarded as a supply or not. There is no consideration. Here you have to remember, even if there is no consideration, since it is import of service, then what will happen? This will be treated as supply. Are you getting?
Yes, sir.
Even if it is without consideration. So this aspect you have to remember for import of services. A similar kind of example I will say. So a proprietor is registered at Delhi, has sought architect service from his relative, from his son, which is located in US, for his newly constructed house. Right? You see, similar kind of situation. Earlier case also similar kind, that kind of situation. Here also import of services. Okay. Here also import of services. Here also it is from a relative. But here it will not be regarded as a supply for the reason is that. What is the reason? Because this is not obtained or the service is not imported in the course or furtherance of business. Okay. Is it clear? Since it is not in the course of business or not in the furtherance of the business, services are received from relatives. Okay, it will not be considered as supply. Okay, or got confused? Now there might be some confusion regarding whether a particular goods are particular supply of goods or supply of services. There is a list of items. We'll be seeing this thing. So first of all, any transfer of goods. Suppose a particular person sells ready-made garments to its customer. So definitely, no doubt, it is supply of goods. Right. Then in transfer of right in goods. For example, let us say a company gives machinery or rent. Then that will be regarded as supply of services. That concept we need to know this. Then supply of goods on hire charges, on hire or hire purchase scheme. That will be still regarded as supply of goods. Supply of toys on sale or return basis. It will be regarded as supply of goods. The lease agreement, etc., treated as supply of services. Okay. All these lease related agreements will be treated as supply of services. Okay, painting, dyeing, etc. They are supply of services. Business assets are transported or disposed of. They are supply of goods. Goods held for business, put for allowed for private use, they will be regarded as supply of services. Right, providing business assets for personal use, they are supply of services. Right, And if there is some business assets and the person ceases to become a taxable person, then it will be assumed that he has supplied those goods. But there are two exceptions. Only thing is that if business is transferred as a going concern, or business is carried on by the personal representative who is deemed to be a taxable person. Except in those two cases, it will be deemed that supply has also been made. Renting a property is also supply of services. Okay, construction of simplex building, all these kind of construction contractor supply of services. Architect service, chartered engineer service, all these things are supply of services. Or developing, designing, etc. supply of services. Works contract services and supply of services. Yeah, these are all certain clarification that has been issued, which are supply of services, which are supply of goods. Yeah, this there are few more detailed things are there. We are not entering it deep into that. What we'll do here, we'll stop here today, and next class we'll start with a new concept, that is the concept of mixed supply and component supply. Right? Do you have any query here up to this?
No, sir.
Okay. Okay. This particular chapter, you see, involves so many tricky issues. So you need to read this chapter. I'll be sending you some reading material. Please go through that. After that only I will expect there will be some doubts, some queries will be coming. Then it will be better if you discuss all these things after that. Right? I'll be sending some reading materials. Please go through it and have some doubts, so that that can be discussed and that can be clarified. So thank you very much. We are closing our session here right now. We'll catch up in the next class. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.